our outline. The event description is going to be a heritage celebration of Tiong Bahru, which is the area around our school. So this will be a one-day event which involves an artist talk of 30 to 45 minutes. That's our guest speaker, the artist that we'll invite. And various learning activities for the students throughout the day. And then it will end with the opening of a new heritage center in the school by the MP. And throughout the day, there will also be an exhibition of this artist's works, which will be like 15 to 20 pieces in the school foyer. Okay, and then the objectives of the event is to raise awareness of the local cultural heritage around Tiong Bahru, and also to inculcate community spirit in the students, which will hopefully inspire them to give back to the community and preserve their cultural heritage. Okay, these are our stakeholders. Pretty standard. The only thing I want to point out is the external vendor. It's for setting up the exhibition, because you have to be very careful with handling artist works, of course, so we'll hire someone to bring in the appropriate materials for that. And this is our brainstorming mind map for the communication plan. As you can see, there's a lot of stakeholders, and they each have a different purpose and mode of communication. So for the students, the purpose is to explain the program to them, explain why we're doing it and what they're supposed to learn from it, and to encourage them to value this learning opportunity. And we'll communicate it to them through a morning assembly, and as well as the school newsletter and a web announcement on the website. And for the parents and guardians, it is to inform them of any logistics if we need their support or anything like that. And also to reassure them of the value of this event. And we'll communicate to them through an announcement on the website and also the school newsletter. So for the guest speaker, it's the communication will be by email and phone, and if he needs to visit the school to plan where he wants to lay out the artworks, and then we'll invite him to visit the school. And the purpose will be to invite him and give him details about the event, everything he needs to know, and of course confirm his attendance. And for the teachers, the purpose is to inform them of what they need to do, and also give them the details so that they can help with any inquiries from the students or parents. And we'll do this through staff meetings, the briefings, and also email all the staff. Okay, and then the principal and vice principals, the purpose is to keep them informed, of course, about our progress, and to reassure them that things are going smoothly, and to seek their approval for certain things like the email. And this will be done through meetings with between the committee, the planning committee, and the principal and vice principals, and email reports. Okay, then the member of parliament, the purpose is to invite him and to give the details of the event, similar to the guest speaker, and also to confirm the attendance, and this will be done through email and phone calls if necessary. And then security, we need to inform them of the staffing and time of deployment, so that they can plan for it, and they will be doing it through briefings and information handouts. For the general office, we need to tell them about any rooms that we need to book for the learning activities, and the booking hall and all that. And also to give them information so that they can handle any calls from parents, if there are any. And we'll be doing this through briefings and information handouts. And finally, the external vendor, we need to engage them, we need to hire them, tell them what they need, what we need, sorry. And this will be done through emails, phone calls, and again, a school visit if they need to view the location.
Okay, so now that Theodora has run through the stakeholders, I'm going to run through the communication plan and at what stages we will contact them and how, and so on and so forth. So in the first step, you see that the in charge of the heritage celebration kind of sets up the committee of teachers, right? Following that, common sense, they'll be discussing things like the event objectives, they will allocate roles, which teachers do what, who will contact who, and so on and so forth. They will run through the kind of communication plan that I'm trying to run through with you now. They'll talk about things like internal deadlines, external deadlines. They'll identify the guests, for example. So like as Theodora mentioned just now, we've got a guest artist, for example, and the one that we're inviting is Mr. Yiu Chong, who designs some of the murals in Tiong Bahru. We're also going to consider the local MP that we're inviting, as well as which vendor we would like to hire in order to help us have the exhibition. So moving on, once all this has been confirmed, we will present the program to the principal and the vice principal for approval. The blue arrows there will be the the text samples that we'll be showing you in the presentation. So one of the things that we'll talk about is the kind of oral presentation that we will provide to the principal and the VP for the approval. Following that, all correspondences will be sent to them for approval. So correspondences here referring to those that are going out to the external stakeholders. So let's say like those to the public relations office for the MP, for example, or the guest artist. Then after that, once they have been approved, we will go on to contact these guests, speakers, vendors, etc. And then once we get their attendance, we confirm and finalize the event program again with the principal and the vice principal. This is where we include a review of the commission plans. So we kind of look at what we've done so far, and we kind of time our announcements to the internal stakeholders, to the students, the teachers, the non-teaching staff, and so on and so forth. We think about how do we deliver the content to them, through what mode, for example, and then we also try and anticipate the kind of queries that we will get. Lastly, we'll move on to briefing the staff and the teachers about the event. Okay, following that, after the staff has been informed, we go on to notify the parents and the students via a few modes. So one of them will be an assembly announcement to the students. Then to the parents, we talk about a newsletter as well as an announcement on the website, which is something that we will also show you later in our presentation. The committee then works closely with the form teachers to field queries from teachers and from parents and the students as well, once the information goes out. And then non-teaching staff such as the OM, the canteen operators, the school attendants, security, etc. will be notified and updated about the kind of event that's going to take place on that day. Coming up to the event, we're going to send out a final email to the external stakeholders to confirm their attendance, as well as to make any changes if there needs to be. We will also send out a final reminder to staff, parents, and teachers, followed by the celebration itself. And then following that, we will move on to two debrief sessions. So one of them will be with the committee of teachers as well as the teaching staff. That's where we also include our second review and communication plan to see if changes had to be made. And then we also do a debrief with the students because the heritage celebration is supposed to help them to inculcate certain values in them. So that's why we include the second debrief with them. So I'm more than time to Chun Hao, who will go through one of the writing samples.
Okay, thank you, Hazel. I will now be taking you through our first mode of written communication, which is our email to our guest speaker. So I'd like to draw your attention to the first paragraph, in which the first thing we did was to actually state the context of our email to the artist who has, is essentially receiving a cold call from us. So we need to let him know what we are talking about for this event. Immediately after that, we're actually moving on to the purpose, which is to invite him to be a guest speaker. This would be in the second sentence, all right? And we are inviting him, we are showing our awareness of audience as well and explaining why we have chosen to invite him, okay? So this is under the underlying sentence, which is to inspire students to give back to the community, just as he did through his own art. Okay, so having established the context, purpose, and audience in the first paragraph, we then move on to the second paragraph where we talk a little bit more about some of the details of the event, so what's going to happen, that the fact there's also going to be a concurrent opening of a heritage center attended by a local MP. So he's aware of what's going on and the role he will be playing during the event. And finally, in the last paragraph, we reiterate our invitation, okay? And throughout this invitation, we also use a lot of language that conveys warmth, cordiality, and enthusiasm. Okay, so this encourages the invitee to actually accept the invitation and participate in our festivities. So words which are also underlined, for example, we would be delighted to host an exhibition. We would love to showcase some of your other works. We eagerly look forward to having you with us at our event. Okay, so these are some examples of language that we use that will encourage the invitee to respond positively. Okay, now I'll pass the time on to Tim, who will talk about our second written mode.
Thank you, Chun Hao. All right, so this is the second written correspondence, and that is to the parents. It takes the form of a website announcement, and this is like a draft announcement that we've written to them. And okay, it's a bit small, but I'll just like to draw your attention to the purpose of it, which is really to inform the parents about this entire event, which is part of Cultural Awareness Week. And it's also part of this whole project to introduce our students to to the new campus, which is in Tiong Bahru. So the context is that the school has been relocated to a new site. And so we have invited Mr. Yip to share about his artwork as a way to introduce students to the history and the culture of this new location that the school is moving to. And so that forms the context as well. And we are also very conscious that parents these days are very concerned about their children's time spent in school. So we also wanted to reassure them that the programs will not interfere with the school's standard curriculum time, because the speech will take place during assembly. And if any students are, if any of their learning is disrupted, we will conduct supplementary lessons for them. So for example, if some student representatives, like student leaders, need to be involved in running some events or help with the preparation, we'll ensure that we will conduct supplementary lessons for them. It's very important as parents will call and say like, hey, how come my kid is not getting this? Things like that. Yeah, so we want to kind of avoid all that, so we have written that in the email, in the web. Yeah, so purpose. So there are various purposes, right, to inform them about the school event, to assuage them that curriculum time will not be compromised, and to foreground the school's efforts to introduce curated and customized programs to them, because every school is a good school, and this school is no exception, and it has very, very good programs as well. So now I'll pass the time to Chun-Hao, who will talk about the oral presentation.
Yes, I'm back. All right. So for our first mode of oral presentation, we're actually presenting to our first set of key internal stakeholders, which is all the teachers in the school, okay, the staff in general. So the presentation will be conducted during staff contact time, okay, and it is to brief them on the details of the event and what's going to happen. So firstly, and most importantly, we are going to talk about the student learning objectives for the event so that they are aware and they can individually align their expectations to the learning objectives. Okay. Secondly, we're also going to talk about the event flow, what's going to happen at every moment of the event, okay, so that they are aware of the timeline. Thirdly, what they need to actually do during the event. Okay, so most importantly, they will need to facilitate student movement between venues, so between the classroom and the school hall and the heritage center as well. So there will be a few locations, and teachers need to know when to do what. Secondly, certain teachers may also need to play specific roles. So some teachers might be at the heritage center to receive the MP, whereas some might engage the guest speaker before or after the talk. So we need to let them know what's going to happen and where they need to be and what they need to do as well. And finally, the briefing will actually talk about how form teachers for all of their classes can engage their students after the activity to reinforce the learning points aligned to the learning objectives for the event, so that this is actually a learning opportunity for students as well. Okay, so these are some of the PAC considerations that we took into account for this presentation. Firstly, because the entire student body will be present and participating in this event, it is vital that all teachers are firstly aware of the event objectives, and secondly the details of what's going to happen in the event, so that they can facilitate what's going to happen, the student movement in an orderly manner, develop meaningful post-event activities as well. So this would be the main purpose and the audience for our oral presentation. And then the use of language for this presentation is going to be mostly respectful and informational in tone, as we are both providing information to our colleagues and also seeking their assistance and cooperation in handling the students and doing whatever they need to do for the event. So this would include phrases like, we would require your assistance, we seek your understanding that, please take note of these timings, okay, here are some activities you may find useful for your students, etc. Now, I'll pass time on to Wayne, who will talk about our second oral presentation.
Okay, for the second oral presentation, it will differ because now it will be a presentation to the key personnel in the school, or KPs for short, so these will be the school leaders. So in our presentation, we'll cover these main issues. The first of them is the purpose of the program, the various HODs and the KPs that I mentioned, okay? It will be to tell them how it will benefit the students at large, how it will align with educational outcomes that the ministry has outlined, and basically just keep the KPs abreast of the entire event. Following that, we'll provide more details such as the event flow, including specific timings that will take place during the activity itself. A third thing that we'll cover is the number of roles that we played by these specific key personnel. For example, the vice principal may have to be at the Heritage Center to receive the guests of honor, and the aesthetics HOD may have to escort the guests around throughout the day itself. And the final issue that we have to cover is when are the key junctures in our communication plan when the KPs will be kept in the loop and updated of the entire proceedings. So we've also blended some of the PAC considerations for our presentation. Since the KPs are the leaders of the school, it is of course important and crucial to give them an overview of the overall timeline, as well as to get their okay, to get the approval of the entire event before it can even happen. So as we go about this presentation, our use of language will be tactful, will be to adopt a tactful and open tone, since we're both providing information to the KPs, as well as seeking their advice, seeking input from them because of their valuable experience, and so they will almost certainly have advice and suggestions for us on how to improve our entire program. So some examples of the language that we'll be using, we could say, we were wondering what your opinion was of so and so, so just injecting a more tentative tone into the entire into our speech. Another example is if it is not too much trouble, again a little more tentative, and it may be beneficial for students if. So we're couching it as a suggestion. We're not telling them what we plan to do, but we're seeking their input, seeking their advice and their approval of our suggestion. And finally, perhaps the budget could be revised if we blah blah blah. So we're using a lot of hypothetical, a lot of conditional language to make it seem polite and more tactful. And now I'll pass the time on to Hazel again.
Okay, so once the event is over, for example, some of the questions that we'll ask ourselves to evaluate the communication plan, right? So like the first one, did we communicate effectively with all stakeholders? So we're thinking about things like have we ensured that all stakeholders are being informed and kept updated, right? So whether there are any missing gaps in our communication plan, we're also thinking about how did we get the information to them and what kind of information did we get to them, whether this was all appropriate and adequate, okay? Second question we asked, how did our communication plan affect our relationships with our stakeholders, okay? So we're looking at things very similar to the first question, but we're looking at things like, was there any misinformation or miscommunication somewhere, for example, that might have caused certain tensions between, let's say, the committee and some of the teachers, or between the committee and the parents and things like that. Or on the flip side, whether some of the information that we've given them has helped them has given them a sense of confidence that the committee is doing the right thing, or that we've considered different opinions. The last question we will ask, what are some follow-up actions we can take to improve or sustain our relationships with our stakeholders? So this is a question that we will start asking ourselves during the debrief session with the teachers and the students, for example. So we'll start asking ourselves, if we did this event again, what are some of the things that we will put in place that we did not previously, which will help us improve our communication with these various stakeholders? Now, pass the time on to Tim to wrap up.
Yeah, so one of the key learning points is it is important to identify the objectives of the event, as this will determine who the stakeholders are. So it's very important to consider the different partners that are involved in this project. Because different stakeholders will have different needs and different concerns. It's very important to adjust to their particular styles and preferences and tastes and inclinations. When organizing the communication plan, it's important to keep avenues open to ensure all stakeholders are informed and queries are fielded and taken into account. We want to make sure that they are happy and not overly upset with any of the events that are being run. When communicating with parents, it's important to consider their perspectives. For example, how might this program benefit their child? And anticipate their questions in order to better convince them of the value of particular events. So we need to always ensure that our stakeholders are well taken care of, and we need to ensure that they are pleased with the kind of work that the school is doing. Yes, I think that sums up our presentation. Thank you very much for your attention.